This is the IBJ podcast for the week of Monday, June 24th, 2024, brought to you by Taft. I'm your host, Mason King. Welcome back to the podcast, everybody. Over the last 4 decades, residents of Hamilton County have amassed a wealth of options for hospital care. For the folks who aren't familiar with the Indianapolis area, Hamilton County contains many of the major northern suburbs of the Indianapolis area. As its population has grown, so have the healthcare options. The county is already home to 11 acute care and specialty hospitals with a total of nearly 800 beds. Many Indiana counties have no hospitals or a single facility with less than 50 beds. Some consumer advocates say the hospital systems are chasing business in the suburbs, where household income is high and residents have generous health insurance packages, while curtailing or closing hospital services in less prosperous, more rural parts of Indiana. Several of the health systems say they're simply following the market and providing health care where the population is growing the fastest. The latest entry into this market was announced this month. Community Health Network says it's planning to open a $335 million campus in Westfield, which would make it community's first hospital facility in Hamilton County. IBJ healthcare reporter John Russell is using this opportunity to take stock of the county's hospital marketplace, what's behind the boom, and to ask what's prompting this additional growth. He's our guest on this week's edition of the podcast, and here's our conversation. I'm pleased to welcome back to the podcast John Russell, who covers healthcare for IBJ. John, thanks for making time today.
Always great to be here.
So the basis for your story this week is the new plan from Community Health Network to build a $335 million hospital campus in Westfield. And for the folks who don't know street addresses around here, that's in the immediate vicinity of US 31 and 196th Street in Hamilton County. $335 million is a big price tag. Just for the sake of comparison, is nowhere near the $4.3 billion. I think, is that right? 4.3 now is the
$4.3 billion with a B.
That IU Health is spending on its massive IU Health Methodist campus in downtown Indianapolis. For community, what does $335 million buy in Westfield?
It buys a lot for a suburban hospital. It seems to offer a lot of services. It's going to feature a mix of new construction and renovations on the site of a former business park. And when they're done, it will include an emergency department, medical offices, and an ambulatory surgical center. And altogether, the facility will span 425,000 square feet, including a patient tower with 100 beds. And put that number into context, 425,000 square feet. You mentioned the IU Health Methodist campus, which is 2.5 million square feet. So it's a little bit smaller.
Yeah. Though to be fair, I mean, the Methodist campus is the combination of Methodist, University Hospital, and also the Simon Cancer Center. I think is moving into the 3rd floor there. I mean, that's 3 facilities.
So that's true. That's going to be, a huge project by any score, one of the biggest capital projects in Indiana history. So we're talking, by comparison with the Community Health Hospital, it's a medium-sized hospital in the suburbs.
So for folks who don't cover healthcare, the number of beds, I take it, is important. I mean, that's one of the metrics for hospital capacity, and this one would have 100 beds.
Right, 100 beds. So the only other hospital in Westfield is a 5-year-old hospital that was built by Riverview Health, and it has 16 beds. So this will be 7 or 8 times bigger.
One of the biggest long-term stories in central Indiana since the IBJ was founded in 1980 has been the explosive growth in population and development, of course, in Hamilton County. Today, it has become one of the most wealthy counties in the state, with, again, skyrocketing population. In 1980, the population of Hamilton County was 82,000 people. Today, it's about 370,000 people. And the median income is $115,000. Now, the comparisons that we've been making to the hospital in Indianapolis the one in downtown Indianapolis, which itself is going to be huge, but just one of many hospitals in Marion County, are kind of incidental. But I wanted to give folks a sense of scale. How many hospitals are there in Hamilton County today? And how many beds do they provide?
It's a little bit of a tricky question because there's a mix of acute care hospitals and specialty hospitals like rehabilitation hospitals or heart hospitals. But altogether, there are 11 hospitals and there's almost 800 beds.
And the way that they're positioned geographically in the county is significant. How does that work?
So a lot of them popped up shoulder to shoulder almost on the Meridian Corridor, US 31. And if you're ever driving north from Indianapolis across the county line into Hamilton County, keep your eyes open because they're coming fast.
Yeah.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 hospitals in a stretch of a couple of miles.
I think in my lifetime, I think I've used 4 of them already for various specialties. So Community's planned Westfield campus is unusual since it will be the health system's first hospital in Hamilton County. The other major systems, IU Health, Ascension St. Vincent, and Franciscan Health, already have facilities in the county. Why is Community just now entering the Hamilton County market?
That's a good question, and one that a lot of people I talked to were wondering about too. But from Community standpoint, they say that they were always looking for a growing market. Like a lot of businesses, they want to be where the customers are. And they saw that Westfield is one of the fastest growing cities in America. I think it's still the fastest growing city in Indiana. And they saw an opportunity to put something there. Also, it would line up with 2 other hospitals they have, Community North in Castleton area and Community Howard Hospital in Kokomo. And if you look at those 3 hospitals, they almost form a straight line from northern Indianapolis to Howard County.
One of the things, just observationally, that is interesting is to see where some of the major hospitals in Marion County are. And you've got Community North, which is basically on 82nd Street. And you have St. Vincent's main campus, which is on 86th Street, which is pretty much synonymous with 82nd Street. So for a while there, was there a sense that those hospitals were serving the emerging Hamilton County population, but finally this just wasn't going to serve it the way they want to?
You know, I would love to see the patient data for where their patients come from. But I would guess that Community North still serves patients from far and wide in a region, if you draw a wide circle, including southern Hamilton County. They are the largest maternity hospital by deliveries in the region, and that doesn't all come from walking distance from the Castleton areas. But I don't have a good answer for that except to say that when St. Vincent was looking 40 or 50 years ago where to expand, they found this fast-growing area in a farmland over on 86th Street. That's what businesses, including hospitals, do. They plan ahead. They look for where their customers are or their patients are going, and they try to put up an asset that will serve them.
This really has nothing to do with St. Vincent, but I'm just old enough to remember when you got to 86th Street and then it was cornfields. And that, within my lifetime. So that was, early 70s for sure. So yeah, I mean, there wasn't a whole lot out there.
Just like you mentioned the growth in Hamilton County, if you look at a graph, it's amazing to see how sharp the upturn was just in the last 20 years.
As you've been pointing out, I mean, you have to make a business decision. There's a question about whether Hamilton County needs any more hospital beds. I mean, based on the fact there already are 11 hospitals there. Can you dig into that a little bit? What is the evidence that what currently is there, hospitals that are currently there, have not met the existing need?
If you look at some of the data for bed occupancy, you can see that some of these hospitals have bed occupancy rates in the 30s, 40s, 50% range, meaning their beds are empty as often as they're filled. Now, hospitals like to keep extra beds for emergencies or pandemics or natural disasters. They don't want to have 100%. So I think the industry round number is maybe 70% occupancy rate is a good, solid full number for a hospital on an average year. Very few of the hospitals in Hamilton County can claim that based on data from some national sources that track this information, although some of them say that they are busy and that their occupancy rate is in the 70s and the 80s.
But if I live in Westfield and I want to stay in Westfield to get my health services, it would make sense that I would want to have a hospital there.
I mean, there's hospitals, a whole bunch of them just a few miles south on the Meridian Corridor. There's a big one, Riverview's main campus in Noblesville, not that far to the east. There's 2 hospitals in Fishers, which is a little farther away. And then right in Westfield, you have Riverview's 5-year-old hospital, which we mentioned earlier. But who's to say how convenient or inconvenient the situation is? Do you want a hospital right down the street or a couple of miles away? Then there's still plenty of room for new ones to pop up. They're all fighting for pretty lucrative growing market.
Now, Communities Hospital in Westfield will offer maternity services. Are there other options in Westfield for expectant mothers?
Not in Westfield. The Riverview Westfield Hospital doesn't have baby delivery services. You'd have to go to Noblesville, Fishers, or Carmel for that. And Westfield and Community Health is stressing that, saying that expectant mothers don't like to drive 15 or 20 extra minutes for those kinds of visits and aftercare.
The 20-minute drive is an interesting figure to me. As we were talking off microphone beforehand, so I live in northern Marion County. My wife and I, mostly my wife, gave birth at IU North. And I would say it was a good 20 minutes from our house. And that was about as comfortable as I was going. We don't live in Park County. We don't live a place where you'd have to go 40 minutes, maybe an hour to get to a hospital. So, I mean, we have an embarrassment of riches when it comes to maternity care.
That is so true. And community advocates, patient advocates, will point this out quickly that, I mean, you look at a map, which is in part of my story package in this week's paper, and you can see how bunched up and well-populated the hospitals are in Hamilton County compared to, and this is not on the map, but many counties in Indiana have less than 50,000 population and no hospital that has delivery service, and pregnant women will have to drive a half hour or more, often to the next county, to find, to get service, to get care. Is that fair? 11 hospitals in one county and no delivery service in some other counties.
It's an interesting question when it comes to healthcare. It's a business, but it's a business that a lot of the time purports to be interested solely in the benefit of its patients, and finding how those two things reconcile, I think is always an interesting bit of tension in healthcare.
That's true. I mean, you'll always hear hospital administrators talking about everything is for the patient. Patient comes first. But then you'll read headlines over the next year about cutting back services here or closing buildings and hospitals there. And they can't deliver everything for a patient when they say they're losing money in a small rural community where people need care. They're older. They're usually sicker. They have worse health. They need just as much, if not more, care than someone in Marion and Hamilton County. So there is a tension between where the care is needed and where the care is, profitable.
And some of the big Indianapolis-based systems have pulled back services in poorer parts of the state. Is that right?
Oh, yeah. You read a story or I write a story almost every couple of months about that. For example, IU Health last year closed an emergency room and ended inpatient care at Blackford Hospital, a rural hospital about 80 miles northeast of Indianapolis. The year before, Ascension St. Vincent closed a critical care hospital in Bedford and has closed baby delivery services in Salem and Frankfurt. Stay tuned for the next headline.
So the hospital systems, I'm sure, make an argument that we need to put the hospitals where the densest populations are.
Yeah. I mean, they'll say that county needs as much care as any other county, but 11 hospitals in one county, all bunched together or many of them bunched together. You just got to wonder if a shakeout is going to take place in the next decade or two. Can they all chase the patients in a good way and offer kinds of care that are needed? Or are they just jumping in a Me Too kind of a way, hoping to grab a piece of the market? Whoever can get the best services to the patients and the employers and the insurance companies in a cost-effective way is going to probably be the winner.
Let's take a quick break so we can hear from our sponsor. This is the IBJ Podcast.
Taft, today's modern law firm. With more than 800 attorneys in 8 primary Midwest markets and the District of Columbia, we provide solutions to the business issues facing middle market and emerging companies alike. We do this through a highly collaborative and inclusive team approach. Taft, the modern law firm. To learn more, visit taftlaw.com.
We're back with the latest edition of the IBJ Podcast and my interview with John Russell about the hospital marketplace in Hamilton County. Is the scarcity of hospitals in rural Indiana just a consequence of having a relatively small number of residents or very diffuse population compared to metro areas? Or is there more to it than that? Is another element there?
As I said before, these people are often older in the rural communities than they are in the cities, and they're often sicker. They don't get the regular care. They get a chronic disease. They don't get the chance to see their doctor every few months. So they get sicker, and these conditions get worse until they need a hospital. So those are the main reasons.
The need for access to medical services is so acute in many counties that the Indiana legislature agreed in 2023 to fund a very broad community health initiative around the state with $225 million over 2 years. And it's something that we've talked about here on the podcast a few times. I think all of the counties have opted in now into that program. They were allowing counties to do it, on a one-by-one basis, but the stragglers, I think, are back in.
Right. I've read about this. I haven't written too much lately on this. I don't have up-to-the-minute information on which counties are in it now. But yeah, the legislature is all over healthcare lately in the last couple of years. I mean, the overarching issue is the price of healthcare. According to the latest RAND study, we're the 8th most expensive state for healthcare compared to what Medicare will charge and get for comparable, identical services. So the legislature wants to know, are hospitals overbuilding? Are the doctors in golden handcuffs? Are they working well enough with partners to take care of patients once they've been discharged? You've seen all kinds of legislation in the last couple of years aimed squarely at the hospitals, and the hospitals have been on the defensive. The price of healthcare is in their lap, and they're going to have to expect to answer for it. And I expect this to keep happening over the next few years.
What do the hospitals, and particularly the Hospital Association, Indiana Hospital Association, that represents all hospitals, what do they say their role is in the price of healthcare and why they shouldn't be held solely accountable?
Well, first of all, their longtime president, Brian Tabor, stepped down a couple of months ago. In his absence, they're looking for a new executive director or president and have an interim right now. So they just released a statement to me saying that hospital building and development projects are based on market research and are designed to reflect population growth and other factors, things that we've been talking about for the last few minutes and things you would expect the Hospital Association to say. They go on to say that Indiana has a competitive hospital market across the state and patients benefit from a variety of choices for care. And then they try to address what some people would raise as, well, the main reason all the hospitals are going to Hamilton County is because it's a prosperous county, as you pointed out, Mason, with people who can pay out of pocket for a lot of services or have very generous private insurance. And they say that Medicare and Medicaid remain the predominant payers for care, including in Hamilton County. So they want to debunk the theory that hospitals are rushing to a gold mine. They say that Medicare makes up 50% of a hospital's payer mix, even in Hamilton County. And it said hospitals in Indiana lose 43 cents on the dollar for care provided under Medicaid and 18 cents under Medicare. So it's not, when it makes up 50% of your payer mix, they're talking about this is still a small operating margin that these hospitals are even in a prosperous county. But why are they all there? They're there for a reason.
That's a good question. We have a great graphic in the latest issue of IBJ that shows the position of all these hospitals. So we'd say 11 hospitals in the county. 7 of them are basically on top of each other, if you look at it on a map. Then there are a few kind of dotted around the rest. Other markets, you think a hospital system might think, this maybe should be the next place we go with, 50 to 100 bed hospital.
Other markets outside of Hamilton County?
Outside of the places where they currently have them.
That
the US 31 corridor and eastern Hamilton County by Fishers.
So there's 2 hospitals in Fishers, IU Health and Ascension St. Vincent have hospitals in Fishers, not that far apart, not as bunched up as on the Meridian corridor. But, right, I mean, you can take a look at this map and see the whole northeast part of the county is still pretty much wide open. I don't live in Hamilton County. I don't know what's that far north. Fishers, don't drive in that direction too often, but probably it's not as populated as densely. I think it's like it's on a way to Fort Wayne and a drive-through part of the county. Correct me if I'm wrong, readers, but if there are hospital options in your part of the county, it's not showing up on our map.
And when is the Westfield Hospital expected to be complete?
So it's going up in phases. So there's parts that are going to be brand new construction and parts that are going to be renovated construction because they're going into a existing office park and taking over some buildings there. The brand new construction will be a hospital tower, if you can call, I think it's 4 stories, a tower with 100 beds. And then that's going to be completed in 2026. And then some of the medical office buildings, some of the outpatient services will be done a little earlier, maybe early 2026 or late 2025.
Well, there's a lot here to keep track of. So hey, thanks for your time, and we'll check in later.
Okay. Well, as I say, I think the next big story is going to be the shakeout. So maybe a year from now, we'll have some more to say about that.
All right. Appreciate it. My thanks again to John Russell. You can read more about Community's Westfield project and the Hamilton County Healthcare Marketplace in John's story on the front page of the latest issue of IBJ. And before you get on with the rest of your week, there are a few other stories I want to draw to your attention. First up, as technology and other factors transform the accounting industry, some firms are turning to private equity investments to help them keep up with the pace of change. Susan Orr has more on this emerging trend, pairing accountants with private equity. Also in this week's issue, Daniel Bradley explains how Carmel's Palladium is upgrading its sound system in hopes of luring new and bigger acts to the performance hall. And Kate Sharon details a new grant program designed to provide promising startups with as much as $50,000 to launch product development, testing, and research, and other key needs that small businesses often can't afford. Again, you can find these stories in the latest print edition of IBJ or online at ibj.com. And thanks again for making time this week for the IBJ podcast. I'm Mason King. Hang in there, everybody. We'll be back again next week.